It's the Wednesday evening edition of Weather for Weather Geeks as we get set to eat a little humble pie this evening. The forecast went awry today by our standards. We weren't real happy with how the forecast panned out this morning. We did have some surprise rain in parts of the region. We're going to explain right off the top kind of what happened. And, forecast busts are going to happen. It's the nature of trying to predict the future. It's the nature of trying to predict a rotating... we're on top of a rotating sphere, and there's an air mass above our heads that's a fluid. It behaves just like water, and it's on top of a rotating sphere. Its behavior is hard to predict. And we get it right most of the time, but today was one of those days in which we had some issues with some rain that pushed in this morning in parts of the area. And, to the best of my ability, the easiest explanation for why it rained this morning when we didn't expect it to rain, I mentioned the atmosphere above our heads being a fluid. It's basically just like water, except it's air, it's invisible, we breathe it, we don't drink it, but its behavior, like water, we had little ripples in that airflow, kind of like ripples on a pond out there this morning. Those are kind of represented, those little ripples, by these red colors on this map. This is a map of what we call vorticity, or spin, in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And when you have enhanced spin, or a little ripple moving along in the airflow, sometimes that can provide some uplift in the atmosphere. And if you get enough uplift and the right things come together, you can have some raindrops. And this little subtle feature, which was not handled well by the computer models, of course, moved through this morning and brought some modest amounts of rain to parts of eastern Ohio and western PA. It wasn't much, but it was annoying. And anyone, who was counting on a dry day today to stain the deck, to work outdoors, if you had outdoor lawn furniture, those sorts of things that you didn't want to get wet, you weren't real happy with me and weather forecasters throughout the region earlier on today. So yeah, a little humble pie definitely needed, because sometimes, a dose of humble pie does us some good. Weather forecasting can be a humbling business, and sometimes on a day like today, we have to be reminded of that. We picked up 0.04 at the airport, again, not much. And for the month as a whole, of course, we're behind the average because these are some of the first raindrops we've seen in the month of August after a fairly dry month of July. I do think the pattern will turn a little more active as we head deeper into mid-August, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But now that we're kind of almost a week into the month of August, we're really entering what we call solar autumn, the 3 months of the year in which we lose daylight at the fastest rate. Of course, it's not the darkest time of the year, that's solar winter, but in solar autumn, the rate of change per day is at its nearing its peak, and that crescendo, of course, is right around mid-September in time for the equinox, which is coming up in about 6 weeks or so. And, it's getting to be a little bit noticeable at the start of the day and at the end of the day, certainly getting darker a little bit sooner in the evenings. Our sunset on this Wednesday evening at 8:32, but coming up in 3 weeks, almost 8 o'clock. We'll have pre-8 p.m. sunsets before the month of August is through. All right, we're going to blitz through Futurecast the next few days. Now, again, could there be a renegade shower at some point over the next few days? I can't completely rule that out, but I think the chances are small. Maybe a somewhat better chance Friday. Don't really see it on the modeling here, but the modeling wasn't really showing it for today either. That being said, I'd be pretty surprised if anybody saw some raindrops over the next few days. Generally speaking, a mostly to at times partly sunny sky will be the rule. And it's going to be a good stretch of days to find your way to the pool, to find one of the area lakes. Now that we're into the first week of August, we're just about at our peak water temperatures of the year. We pick up our maximum solar radiation in June. Air temperatures, climatologically speaking, tend to peak in July. Water temperatures always lag behind, especially the deeper lakes. And waterways throughout the region typically reach their warmest temperatures right around August 5th to 15th, somewhere in that window. Lake Erie in particular is balmy, although we had some upwelling over the weekend. Those strong northerly winds did knock the water temperatures back, especially along the coast of Cleveland, up near Geneva on the Lake and Ashtabula and places like that. But generally speaking, on Lake Erie, it's still pretty warm temperatures in the 70s to around 80. Some of our local lakes, Mosquito Lake and Guilford Lake, and name a lake, it's pretty toasty, those water temperatures, and they're just about probably at their peak for the entire season. As far as the air temperatures go in the coming days, with a steamy forecast for the weekend, again, it's a good weekend to find the water. Our heat index making its way into the lower 90s by the weekend and early on next week. And while there could be a couple of showers and storms around Tuesday into Tuesday night with a weak front around midweek, generally speaking, after the middle of next week, the pattern will be a little more active. Now, I don't think it'll be super active, but you can see on today's 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook from the Climate Prediction Center that the odds favor a wetter than average outcome from about the 12th through the 16th. So, again, very little in the way of rain chances through the middle of next week, with the exception of maybe Tuesday and Tuesday night. But generally speaking, we should have more opportunities for wet weather heading into the middle of August. And, you know, a lot of us are enjoying this relatively calm period after a pretty wet and unsettled start to the summer season. But if your yard is getting a little bit too brown and too crispy, if you're kind of annoyed that you have to water the garden and that sort of thing, maybe you'll like a more active pattern shaping up as we head into the middle of the month. In the meantime, thanks for watching this Mea Culpa edition of Weather for Weather Geeks on this Wednesday evening. I'll have an update on the short and medium range forecasts and much, much more coming up on Thursday. Hope to see you then.